Hello. Welcome to Tuesdays at 2, a little late. Okay, we, once again, I don't know what happened because we don't move the equipment. We just use it every month on Tuesdays at 2, so it doesn't get moved. But what we had to do is shut the complete thing down, turn it back on, and now for some reason the volume works. So, yay. Yay. So, welcome to Tuesdays at 2. I'm Janet Prey, Islander Sewing Systems. And I'm here with Brenda Rogerson, who is now feeling much better behind the camera. So, I just want to mention a couple of things. You probably saw the newsletter today, but if not, you should know what's going on. Now, we have two classes that are going to start next week. They're online classes. You get to work at your own pace. The first one is the Wired for Style. And if you watch us regularly or you follow us on Facebook and YouTube, you've seen that garment. We've uh, had two classes of it already. Lots of people are coming back and buying the collar stands because they want to make a second or a third one. So it's a very, very popular, and there's like 17 different options of fabrics and buttons to choose from. And it's a great class. You can watch it again. You're going to have 8 weeks. So it was a 4 week class, but we give you the additional 4 weeks so that life gets in the way. You need to take a week off or you get called to a family issue. No problem. You've got plenty of time to do that. We also have the Princess Seam Sloper workshop, and this is our third one of that as well this year, and it's an extremely popular class. It's important to have a sloper if you want every garment you make to fit, and if you want every garment you make to know that it's going to fit before you cut it out. So there's no stress afterwards. You're not throwing things away after you get them sewn up and to find out that they don't hang right, they don't fit right, whatever it is. So the sloper solves all that. Is the sloper easy peasy to make? Not usually, because we're dealing with so many different irregularities of each person's body. So some of the people that take the class have either had childhood diseases or injuries. Some people have scoliosis. Some people just have uh, been handed down a different type of genetic body than some of the rest of us. So there's so many different things. Those people, uh, there's a few more adjustments and trying to make sure we get it just right. But even people who have none of those issues still have one shoulder longer than the other, one at a different slope, or maybe they're both at a strong slope, or a wider back, or one hip larger than the other. It just goes on and on. Nobody has a 100% symmetrical body. So we have to get all that fit. But once we do, if you're a person who's had garments that hung crooked on them or uneven, and that's we'll find out why, because it'll be in probably in the shoulders, and that won't happen anymore with the garments that you make because you already have corrected that in the sloper. But it does take a while and some patience. That's why we give you 10 weeks, and you can watch the 5 lessons as often as you like during that 10 weeks. So those two classes are available, and you can register for them still this week, but they do start next week. Two things that are on sale this week. We've been spending so much time with fitting that we've almost neglected what we're really well known for, and that is our construction techniques. And if you've watched any of my videos on YouTube, you've seen how we sew. And we sew without pins or basting. But that's not the end of the thought. So some people will say, oh, yeah, I sew without pins, but they don't know the concept. So their edges are not staying even. One of the lower layers getting shorter than the top because they didn't know how to handle it or manipulate it. But when you do, You not only can construct things without any pins or basting, you can do things like princess seams. Ease in that princess seam. No pins, no basting. Lots of little things like that. You can set pockets, put zippers in, everything. So that's what the industrial shortcuts video, it was originally, it's a Margaret Islander original video, and that's who I learned from. So it's excellent video. It'll teach you a couple of different types of zipper insertions, as well as waistbands and pockets and darts and understitching and facings. So, and more than that. You can purchase the class and you'll have it as long as you want to use it online. So you'll just go onto your computer and watch it whenever you like, or you can purchase it with the ebook. A lot of people like to have both the book and the video. They're available separate or together. So whichever concept works for you, we've got that covered. But it's 20% off this week, so it's a good discount. And I also threw up the easy zippers. This is one of my favorites. And it covers 5 different types of zipper insertions. Not only do we show you how to do it without any pins or basting, but we show you the little extra tips that you need to know, including what foot to use and what stitch length and where and how much interfacing to put in and quite a few other things. So it's an excellent, excellent video, again, with 5 different zipper insertions. And you might open it up and you put in a zipper and you did a great job, but then you don't need to put that kind of zipper in for 3 or 4 months. And you think, how did I do that? It was slick, but I don't remember exactly. Flip that class on the computer, give it a quick review, and you're off to the zippers. Okay, so that's our announcements for today. But today I wanted to show you how to move an armscye. So right here, I've got a sloper that we put together today. And it's a princess seam sloper. It's not well fitted at the moment. I'm going to be using this for some other demonstrations. But I did try to nip it in a little bit. But what you can see is that the shoulder in some areas is going to be too big. Oftentimes, when you are a person with short shoulders, and of course, this is a standard dress form, so it's going to have standard shoulders. But so many times, the students we're working with in the Princess Seam workshop, their shoulders like here. And so then they have like this 1.5 inch worth of fabric that's just flapping all over the place and impeding the view to make sure that we get a good fit. So first of all, if you are a short shouldered person and you've got all this fabric out here, trim off a reasonable amount of it. When we do an armscye, I don't recommend any more than a 3/8 inch seam allowance unless you're doing a traditional flat felt seam, which takes 5/8. But in this case, I only recommend 1/4 to 3/8, depending how you're going to finish the seam. So there's quite a bit out here more than I need. But I don't need to trim any. I think it's doable at this point. So you know that you got to move your armscye. And is there any questions or anything before I get started here?
No, that's good.
Okay. So the first thing you're going to do, and if you're making a sloper or you're making a muslin to fit a certain pattern, you want, obviously, when you're using muslin, we can use all different color markers, and that really helps. So I'm going to use the red marker here, and I'm going to identify the end of the shoulder in the front and the end of the shoulder in the back. So I've just made like a red dot on either side. Can you see those, Brenda?
So,
Just at the top. And of course, when the seam comes over the shoulder, that's got to be contiguous. All right, so then I'm going to come down to the underarm. And in this case, I'm going to pick an arbitrary spot. You're going to pick the spot where you want your seam to be on your underarm. Some people like a nice deep armscye, and other people like a really short armscye. So it's who you are and how what your comfort is. But I'm going to say this is probably the bottom of the arm. So this is where I want my armscye. But again, you have to be the judge of that because it's a comfort issue. And we all have different comfort issues. All right, so I have a dots up here and I have the seam allowance mark down here. All I have to do is connect from here to here and then from here to here. So when it's on the person is when you want to do this. And you're going to start here, obviously. We know that's where we're going to start. And we're going to come down pretty in a pretty fairly straight manner at first. But the person shoulder is right there. Then the arm, there's a crease right here. We're going to find that crease because that's where that armscye is going to be. So we'll find that crease and draw down into that crease. Once I get most of the way down, now I can see what I have to do. Here's the bottom, and these two have to connect. We're not going to connect them with a straight line. We know it has to curve, and armscye is rounded. So we'll just work our way around to make the match. Okay? Again, so I felt along from the top of the shoulder where that was, along the edge of the shoulder until I get to the crease where the arm separates from the body. And I'm going to come down that crease. But then I'm going to go back and take a look at this so I know how they're going to connect. Then I'm going to go to the back. The back armscye is it's just going to follow along from that shoulder down again. And of course, there's a crease back here, but it's lower. And you're going to follow that down, and pretty soon you're going to see where you have to connect it. And again, we're always going to be connecting in a curve. All right? So, just to recap, if the shoulder is too wide and we want to move it, we're going to mark the top right where the edge of the shoulder is, right where you can imagine your sleeve seam or your sleeve hanging from that edge. If we bring our sleeve in too far, it doesn't hang from that edge. Then it's not going to lay flat. If we bring it down too far, then we have an off the shoulder sleeve and it doesn't hang the same either. So we're trying in this particular case to get it right on the shoulder. So right on the shoulder, 2 dots, front and back. Right at the underarm, the depth that you are comfortable with. If you don't know that by measurement, go to your closet or your pattern catalog, pattern supply, and find an armscye of a garment or a garment that you like, that is comfortable in that area, and compare it. And then you'll know where you want that spot. We're connecting it up. No. Any questions before I go any further? Sorry.
No, no questions.
No questions. I know. I hope we didn't lose everybody. But... Okay. So, next thing you would do after you did both armscyes and whatever other corrections you're going to do, you're going to take your sloper apart and you're going to transfer any new markings to the pattern. So that's what I have here. Okay. Now, one important thing to always remember is that an armscye is the shape of a horseshoe. So if you don't have a horseshoe shape, we're going to make it be a horseshoe shape. And of course, the other very important thing to remember when you go to put a sleeve in and to finish your sloper or your muslin is that your back armscye measurement, that would be the stitching line measurement, needs to be a half an inch longer than the front armscye measurement. Okay, so I just transferred my markings from the muslin or the sloper. And they sometimes you'll see that you'll take it off and there'll be little marks going in a weird direction or outside of the smooth contiguous line. And you know when to ignore those or when to make them fit in. But look here, you see how easy this is. This is an armscye ruler. Now, I can't do the whole armscye with this. It doesn't work, but I can go as far as I can, which is from here to here. I'll use that red pen better. So sometimes you have to do it in two strokes. It's not exactly the right shape, right? So I'm going to come like that. And then I'm going to find a spot on the ruler, which I think is right here. And let's see. Yeah, okay. So it's going to come right to here. Now this is my side seam that I marked. Quite a bit came off of that side seam. So now I have, oh, I'm sorry, Brenda, I'm just putting this in your place. Like, okay, so that's my corrected back armscye. I think I'll go ahead and measure this in a minute. We'll see how close we are to what we need. Now here's one where you can see it got out of place. See, that one's a little out of place. This isn't perfect. So what we want to do is see where we can line them up to get them as close as possible. We'll say there, and then here. And see, this guy was way out there, and these guys were way in. But when in doubt, if it's too far off, if it's too like, I'm not sure that's going to work, then what you want to do is put the muslin back on with this trimmed out all but 3/8 of the seam allowance. I had a little ruler here, but oh, I'll just use one of these big ones. Oh, that's where I left it. Oh, thank you, Brenda. All right. So in order to do, now that we know this is our stitching line, now we have to have a cut line. And at first, it's real easy to get those confused. So always remember what you're drawing on the muslin or the sloper is the stitching line. Then we're going to come, in this case, I'm going to come 3/8 of an inch past the cut line. I'm sorry, the stitching line to create the cut line. And when there's a curve, you just got to kind of slowly work your way around. And 3/8. And then you can connect them up. So all right. Okay. So here is my cut line. So I made a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And now that is my new Armscye. Of course, I'm going to have to add seam allowance here and trim this down. But today we're only dealing with the Armscye. Now I'm going to get my curved ruler here. And I'm going to measure. Let's see how close we are to what we need. And you really need this. Don't fudge this. So you really need to have a 1/2 inch longer in the back arm side than the front. And it's all about how the body is built. All right, let's see. We 5/8 inch shoulder seam. Okay. All right, let's see. These are great, but you can do this. I showed you in July. We did a video in July on sleeves and arm size, to get them to fit. And I showed you how to measure with the tape measure. It's like 9 and it's 8. Okay, let's see what the here. This is front. All right. Okay. And here I have 9 and 5/8. So that's exactly the 1/2 inch difference that we need. So again, your horseshoe is going, you want to kind of take a look at it, make sure that it is indeed the horseshoe shape and that the back is a 1/2 an inch longer than the front. So they'll kind of look more like, let me turn this around for you. When it's laid out, it'll look a little bit more like that. So this is a little higher, 1/2 inch. And that's strictly because of the shape of the body. So if you just take a look here, you can see that the back of a person's body just rounds out. The front of the body dips in, especially for those of us who are making princess seams. We found that we had to tweak the seam in because we dip in here. So we dip in here and then go around. So naturally, this has got to be shorter than this. And that's why you should never make a pattern that has a symmetrical sleeve because you're not symmetrical. And what will happen is if it's done symmetrically, you will spend the rest of the day that you wear that yanking the neckline down because it will continue to pull back like this. And we all know that feeling that have bought souvenir t-shirts because inexpensive t-shirts are done inexpensively. And if the front and the back are cut identical and both sleeves are cut identical, they makes their job a whole lot easier. Makes the fit stink, but it makes the factory work a lot easier. So that's the whole story about moving the Armscye. Thank you, Lily. So I bet there's a question or two now. No, no questions.
No.
All right. Okay. Well, maybe everybody's up to speed with this. I mean, I know some of you just make up the pattern and hope that the shoulder line lands someplace in reasonable area. And I know I always did that too because I have a pretty average shoulder length and it's fairly square. And that's how patterns are built, fairly square shoulders. But if you have a very strong slope to your shoulder, it you can't do that because you're going to have all this slop up here. You're going to have all this extra fabric. Where's it going to go? Well, it's just going to collapse and hang there in a puddle. And sometimes we don't see those things. But when we get one that fits really great and then we see how it could look, then we understand. But so many people alive today have never seen or owned a well fitting garment. Everything is ready to wear. And if you happen to be 5 foot 6, 7, and in a reasonably good shape, chances are, well, you can get a pretty good look. You can get a reasonable look. Sometimes you can even get a great look. But if you're not, if you're 4 foot something or 5 foot 8, you end up in these ozones and you don't know what to do, and you end up settling for something that fits okay or it looks better than anything else I tried on.
Just a question.
Okay, well, I think,
We have a question.
okay.
Karen would like to know where is the end of the shoulder? I've heard in the little notch before the rounded bone or on top of the rounded bone.
Okay. And that always makes me kind of, oh, I don't know what to say other than it's the end of your shoulder. It's where your arm starts. Everybody's built differently. I have students who have a very large, pronounced knuckle or nodule up here, and other people don't. Some people have a dent so far in. I'm working with a lovely lady right now who you can see where her shoulder is in the front, but you can't tell in the back because of the slope of her shoulders, and it's confusing. But we're just not all built the same. What was my question there? Is like, she wanted to know
Is it the notch?
where is it?
Yeah.
It's where the sleeve hangs best on your body. There is uh, there is no specific rule that I could give you because not everybody's shoulders built the same. Like I said, some people's shoulders will be 3 inches lower than mine. They'll be down here. It changes the entire shape of their arm, and I can't give them the same. So basically, it's the end. Okay? This is the end, and the arm is coming down here, and the sleeve is fitting around the top of the arm, that rounded part of the sleeve. And if you're not exactly sure, then it's a perfect time to make a sloper or a muslin and start with where you think it goes. And if it's not comfortable, you'll know that you've got to move it 1/4 of an inch in or 1/4 of an inch out until you find what works for you. It's like I said about the depth of the armhole, Brenda likes hers very high. It's far more comfortable on her for her body type. I like mine not real low, but lower than just average. That's more comfortable for my body type. So, or just me. Sometimes it's just your own sensibility. What feels good. So, I can't give you an exact spot, but I can give you a place to start, and then you find your comfort zone.
Some more questions.
Okay.
Mary asks, if you have a pattern that the sleeve is the same front and back, is there a way to lengthen the back like it should be?
Mary, if you have a pattern where the sleeve is the same front and back, you should burn it. And here's the reason. And people have written me that question, and I tell them pretty much the same thing. I say throw it away. I say put it in the trash. I say get your money back. I don't care, but those are the only things I would do with that pattern. And the reason is, if they don't know any better than to make a sleeve equal, think about it. It's very uncomfortable. Anyone who's ever taken pattern 101 knows this. They did not take a pattern class, or they don't care. I don't know which. chances are they've never taken a pattern class. Chances are they bought one of those inexpensive home softwares, and a lot of those create a symmetrical sleeve and a symmetrical armscye. And why do they do that? Same reason the cheap factories do it, because it's easy. It's easy. It would be very difficult to write software that would give you the perfect armscye. That's why home software costs around $1,000. Professional software costs $20,000. That's how sophisticated it needs to be, how much more complicated it needs to be. So I can't tell you this, I would never recommend you save that pattern. Um, so I guess that's the end of my story, but it's just, there's going to be so many other things wrong with it. And the armscye is wrong too. So you have to change the armscye and the sleeve. You want to learn how to pattern draft, make your own. Go make a sloper. But it's just too much work for something that probably isn't going to work out.
Okay. Lori asked, how do you adjust the sleeve to fit the new armhole shape?
Well, you don't. So what you do the question was, how do you adjust the sleeve to fit the new armhole? If my new armhole is balanced, and when I say balanced, it means that back is a half an inch longer than the front. I want the sleeve to be balanced. So I'm going to go to the nest of sleeves that came with this pattern. And I'm going to draw those stitching lines on, just like I did the armscye. And I'm going to measure those stitching lines. And if you go back to July 1st, I think it was, Tuesdays at 2, I show you exactly what you need to do to get the sleeve and the armscye compatible. But it's more likely that you're going to pick a different sleeve in that nest. It could be a size down or a size up is going to be just the right combination. But what you'll see when you watch the July 1st Tuesdays at 2 on YouTube is that you need ease in the sleeve cap. You need somewhere between 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 inch ease from here to here, front. And then same in the back, 1/4 to 3/8 in the back. So if you measure the armscye, you got to find a sleeve that's going to give you that combination. And chances are you will. If you find a sleeve that gives you 3/8 in the back and 0 in the front, that might work out just fine too. You don't have to have the ease. It's not mandatory. So if you find a sleeve that fits perfect for the back and it's not too big or too short for the front, but just right, go ahead and give that a try. So I know we're kind of think, well, I bought this blouse in a 16 pattern, so I have to use 16 sleeve. Well, not if your body doesn't want a size 16 sleeve. Maybe your body wants a size 12, and that's going to look and feel better on your body. But you won't know. There's no mathematical system. You're just going to have to measure the arm size and measure the sleeve caps until you find the one that's going to work best for you. There might be the option that you have to take a little ease out or put a little ease in if you don't find the perfect sleeve. And we have that in one of our newsletters. But and you can find it on all kinds of tutorials online, how to slash and spread to put a little bit more in, or slash and fold over to take a little out, but not a lot. So don't start with your, so let's say you got a 16 sleeve, but you've made a much smaller armscye. Don't start with the 16 and start slashing and reducing, or conversely with a smaller size and trying to spread it wider. Get as close to the armscye measurement as possible. Then if you have to add or subtract a little bit. But I don't have any samples to do that with today, but we have done that plenty of times. So I'm sure it's on YouTube.
That's it.
All right. Excellent. Well, I think then, of course, you know that if you have any questions that come up afterwards, you say, "Oh, yeah, I wish I'd asked Janet." Just send me an email. I'm happy to answer those questions. If you have issues with fitting, consider a sloper. Now, we do three types of bodice slopers. Well, actually, four. There's two princess. So this is a princess. And what is really nice about a princess is it allows you to sculpt into the bust, over and down around the bust. And eventually, as you get this thing all shaped, even if you're a little chunky, you'll look more feminine and more shaped. Okay, and this isn't even half of it because we're going to tip it in here. We're going to do all that. So this princess seam goes over the shoulder and goes down the back. So it gives us, if you're broad across the back or narrow across the back, gives you lots of options to get it shaped just right. Then there's the Armscye princess seam. And this seam, instead of going over the shoulder, makes a turn and comes into the Armscye. And that's a nice look too. I think it looks best on a C cup or below. And this one looks better on anybody, but or not better, but looks good on anybody, but D cup and above, this is a better option, I think. That's my opinion. Then we have a darted blouse sloper. So instead of having princess seams, it's going to have options for darts to get the right shape and fit. And then we have the knit sloper for all your knit tops. This was made for my knit sloper way back, I think, during COVID.
COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was doing those knits and I did a bunch of different stuff. There's real old videos, but they are on YouTube. And forgive my hairstyle because it was COVID and I couldn't go to the hairdresser. So I had some really nasty roots. But anyway, so those are the kind of slopers that eventually you want to consider having in your stash. And once you make these slopers and you get them refined, and sometimes it takes one or two garments to get the exact refine. Like maybe you say, oh, you know what? I wish I'd have made these shoulders just. I think I had one where I made them like a quarter of an inch too long, which doesn't sound like much, but it annoyed me. And the next time I went back and I tweaked my sloper, and every shirt since this felt great. Um, what did I say about that? Okay, so uh, knit slopers are great. You cannot make a knit garment out of a woven sloper. You cannot make a woven garment out of a knit sloper. We pin fit our all of our slopers onto a body to make sure we get the exact fit of that body. But with knit, there's a zero ease in a lot of cases. And so we are stretching the knit and molding it across the body as opposed to just getting it to fit like with woven. So it's a different concept and it's going and a different fit altogether. I get that question all the time. If I make this sloper, can I use it with knits? No, absolutely not. And once you get your sloper pattern completely tweaked, like I said, then you can put it on what's called tag board. And then it goes on a little hanger and you hang it in the closet. And every time you want to use it, you lay it out over your commercial pattern and trace it, or you trace it right onto the fabric. You never cut around it so that it is never diminished. No little nicks, it's been trimmed off, none of the seam allowance was missing, everything is intact. So you always keep it intact. And then you always have it. And whenever you meet somebody who's had the opportunity to have slopers, and I've had a couple of people write me when they were younger, one woman told me somebody made all the slopers for her. She had pants, skirt, tops, everything. She sewed for years until she didn't fit in those slopers anymore. And she didn't know how to make a sloper. But she said it was a wonderful period of time that she was able to sew anything she wanted because she just walked in and grabbed the appropriate sloper. So, anyways, we hope we could help you with um, with slopers, and we got a class coming up next week. I already told you about, and there'll be more on the horizon as well. So stay in touch with us here at Islander Sewing Systems. Again, I'm Janet Prey, and I'd love to hear from you. And if you have any sewing questions that you think I might be able to help you with, please send me an email at islandersewing@comcast.net. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you again next month.